Donald Trump is stuck between a rock and a hard place in the never-ending Republican primary in Texas. Either endorse Senator John Cornyn and make his MAGA base angry, but have a better shot at winning, frankly, or endorse MAGA loyalist Ken Paxton and risk a potential crushing defeat. And we may be getting clues about who he is leaning toward at this point. Speaking to Politico on Thursday, Trump said an endorsement will be made pretty soon before addressing Paxton, who recently said he would not drop out of the race even if Trump endorses Cornyn. Well, that's bad for him to say, Trump said. That is bad for him. So maybe that leads me to go the other direction. Joining us now is Nikki McCann Ramirez, political news reporter for Rolling Stone. So, Nikki, walk us through the tightrope that the president is walking here and where you think he's going to end up.
Yeah, I think to start, what most Republicans were hoping would happen was that the primary would take place, there would be a clear candidate, and we'd be done with it. This is, of course, the most expensive primary in American history so far. Most of that money has been spent on the Republican side by Cornyn, trying to convince not only voters, but Trump that he is MAGA as they come on the president's side. He was, of course, criticized in the aftermath of the 2020 election by Republicans for not endorsing an attempted coup. He has just also made some other very mild criticisms of the president that have seen him deemed a rhino. And that's kind of the position that Trump finds himself in. All the polling says that Cornyn, now that Tallarico has been selected as the Democratic candidate, polls better. He has a little bit more pull with moderates. He's a more establishment figure in Texas. Pretty much, you could argue that almost anyone who's cast a ballot in an election, like a Republican election in Texas, has probably voted for Cornyn at some point. On the other hand, you have Ken Paxton, who is a textbook Trumpian figure, from the divorces to the impeachment to the criminal trials. And he is about as MAGA as they come. When it comes to loyalty, except for his wives, Ken Paxton is second to none. And
you have to explain what that.
Oh, yeah. OK, so Ken Paxton's ex-wife, Angela Paxton, who for a while was leader of the Senate in the Texas Senate, announced last year that she was divorcing her husband on biblical grounds. Essentially, he'd carried on a long-term affair with a political consultant, I believe, who was posting things on her Instagram like the bad bitches always win. I forget exactly what it was. Oh, I'm so sorry.
All right.
But yeah, she was
biblical. It's biblical.
It's biblical. She was very publicly celebrating the fact that she had wrecked the Paxton's marriage. But
I'm sorry.
So sorry.
The dichotomy between that and the biblical.
Yes. Paxton, and then Cornyn's ad about
Yes.
Paxton, and that didn't seem to do anything. That seemed to be the least surprising drop in the bucket among the Texas Republican electorate. They all know this. It's baked in.
Yeah, and that's the problem, that Ken Paxton, with all this baggage around him, a lot of it, Republican criticism of him, has still won 3 statewide elections. Right. So the issue is here that if Trump endorses Cornyn, statistically, they may have a better chance in the general, but he's going to infuriate the MAGA base. And then in an election where Republicans are already very vulnerable and there are already fractures in the party, he's kind of also sending the message that you can talk badly about me, you can criticize me, I'll let it slide. And if you're loyal to me, that is no longer a guarantee that I will back you in your election. And that, I think, is also a very dangerous signal to send to Republicans when the coalition is already so fragile.
But he can't endorse Paxton necessarily because he'd be a loser. He probably would lose, and it wouldn't be good for his overall brand. So really quickly, could we get your takeaways from the Tallarico-Crockett matchup?
Yeah.
And results?
So I think you could kind of see this coming from a mile away.
After Stephen Colbert, basically.
Not even after Stephen Colbert. I think the moment it clicked for me that Jasmine Crockett wasn't running a campaign that could go the distance in the general election.
The website.
The debate.
Oh, the
so
debate.
it was the debate against her and Tallarico. There was only one. It aired online in one station in Austin. I had to work really hard to find it. But by that point, the conversation about electability was already really dominating the headlines. She comes in, she has insane amounts of name ID. She's well known nationally throughout Texas. She kind of jumps to being the favorite, and they ask her pretty basic campaign question, which is, all right, we're having this conversation about electability. Why is it you? And her answer was kind of just, well, the polls kind of say I can do it. And the thing here is, now that we have the primary over, we see the results, we see how it played out. To me, this was Jasmine Crockett's race to lose. And she ran like she was campaigning in a plus 25 district and had time and voters to spare. There was no real visible campaign structure. Her ground game was extremely absent. She was really focused on campaigning in those urban centers where she had a lot of popularity that theoretically could have pushed her over the edge through the primary. But I think the reality is that, you know, elections don't wait for you to kind of get it together. They don't wait for you to build that infrastructure, that army of volunteers.
She didn't even have a campaign director.
Yeah,
right?
she didn't have a campaign director. Like, from what I've heard from
the
people.
website also was a big.
There was like some lorem ipsum kind of.
Yeah, she didn't have an issue page.
Insert here.
Yes, exactly.
Insert policy proposal here.
Yeah.
Literally, I think textually it said something like, write your thoughts here.
Yes.
Yeah. But elections don't wait for you to kind of build those things out. Tallarico had been campaigning for, I think, like 8 months before the primary. He was relatively known in Texas, not super well known. And I think for me, as much as Jasmine Crockett is an absolute powerhouse in the House, she's great at what she does, Texas is a state that is going to be won by razor-thin margins if Democrats have any sort of chance to win it. And you cannot approach a campaign like that thinking you have like the time and the energy and resources to spare. She came in late. She didn't have an issues page. This was very much a primary that, if you talk to voters, was very issue-centric, especially Hispanic voters. Mm-hmm. They are still extremely concerned about the economy. Tallarico's campaign was extremely focused on his slogan, which is top versus bottom, not left versus right. In Crockett's case, the sloganeering, the sort of messaging from the campaign was about her. Her as a fighter, her as Texas tough, which is great sounding, but it's also the marketing on like the H-E-B freezer bags I have in my house.
I want to look forward, though, for a second, which is that, so Tallarico obviously has won now.
Yeah.
And Crockett clearly made mistakes, but she does have a key block of voters, black voters in Texas, who do a lot for the Democratic Party.
Of course.
And some of them feel burned for a number of different reasons right now, whether people see them as valid or not, or can relate to them or not. What do you think Tallarico at this point is going to have to do to get them on his bandwagon now, to earn their votes when he was not their first choice?
Yeah, I think he needs to show them that he is as serious about courting their votes as he is about courting the Hispanic vote, which was a central part of his campaign. Yeah. He needs to go to those communities, and he has been to a certain extent, but really make the argument in the same way he just launched Tallarico en Español. He needs to start tailoring his campaign message to that. He does have very significant weaknesses. He is about as interesting as a continental breakfast to me. He lacks the charisma. He really needs to build up still a little bit. I think that name ID outside of the state, I think at the end of this primary, there was some impressions about him that statements have I heard that he's like the next John Fetterman, that he's a stealth Republican. I think a lot of people are really nervous about the Christian nationalism part of it, which he hates Christian nationalism, but the fact that people are claiming he is.
But there's probably an opportunity there for Democrats.
Well, I think where they're going to go straight at him is by calling out how he actually is pretty left. That's the attack that I see coming from Republican operatives.
That's been a funny thing to watch the last couple of days, in the sense that on the left, he's like a stealth Republican, but on the right, he thinks God is non-binary.